wherever you are when you see this video. I have a lot to go over with you regarding the Greece-Turkey issue element of World War III. I'm going to get more into that because I haven't really focused on that recently, and some things have come up, so I'm going to need to go through some of this. I want to start with some history so you understand why, what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Great Schism of 1054. That's about the date that it happened. It's important for us to understand all this, so I'm going to be going through a little bit of history, really short pieces, so you can get an idea before we go into other portions of this information. So there's a reason why this is so important. The Western Roman Catholic world's actions significantly contributed to the decline and eventual fall of the Byzantine Empire. So the Great Schism of 1054 and its aftermath. The East-West Schism formalized the division between the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. In case somebody doesn't know this, some people don't, so I'm explaining it now. This created cultural, political, and religious fragmentation within the Byzantine Empire. The division hampered the Byzantines' ability to rally unified support against invaders like the Seljuk Turks and later the Ottoman Turks. Now, second part of this is the Fourth Crusade and the sack of Constantinople. This crusade, initially aimed at Jerusalem, was diverted and ended with the Crusaders sacking the Christian city of Constantinople, according to fandom. This was very bad. It was really very unchristian what they did. It was almost paganistic, horrible things they did at that time. This was a devastating blow to the Byzantine Empire, crippling it economically and politically. It also was a betrayal of the West against the East, and that's how the East sees it. So I'm telling you this from the Orthodox Christian viewpoint that maybe you don't hear in Western Christian history. You hear it in a different light, but this is how we see it as Orthodox Christians. This is how it played out. The city was pillaged, its wealth carried away, and a Latin empire was established, replacing the Byzantine Empire for over 50 years. The sack deeply wounded relations between the Eastern and Western churches, fostering a sense of betrayal, that's what I said, and making future cooperation difficult. Now, number three, the lack of unified support against the Ottomans. Despite facing the growing threat of the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantines struggled to secure consistent and unified existence from the Western powers. Western leaders, particularly the Pope, often conditioned aid on the Byzantine acceptance of Catholicism, which was a point of contention and led to internal unrest. This fragmentation and internal discord further weakened the empire's ability to resist the steadily advancing Ottoman forces. In essence, the deepening religious divide, coupled with the catastrophic events of the Fourth Crusade and the subsequent lack of unified support, left the Byzantine Empire vulnerable and ultimately unable to withstand the Ottoman onslaught. Okay, so that's the first part I wanted to share with you so you know where this is going. Okay, we're going to go to this portion. Since the arguing and tension that's going on between Greece and Turkey, it has to do with the islands in the Aegean and the area, the zones in the Aegean and the Ionian Seas. So I'm going back in history on this with the Venetian control of Greek islands. The Venetians came to own several Greek islands primarily through their military conquests and strategic alliances during the Fourth Crusade and subsequent centuries. So again, it's the Fourth Crusade here that caused a lot of problems. Okay, so Venice gained control of key islands and coastal cities in the former Byzantine Empire, including Corfu, Crete, and others, which became part of their maritime empire. The Venetians, under leaders like Marco Sanudo, captured islands such as Naxos in 1207 and established a feudal system. which allowed them to maintain control over these regions for centuries. Additionally, the Venetians gradually acquired the Ionian Islands starting in the mid-14th century and maintained their rule until the end of the Republic in 1797. Just remember that I think part of this time, the Byzantine, those in the Byzantine Empire, mostly the Greeks, were under 400 years of Ottoman oppression and occupation, ruling over them, and it was a very difficult time. So some of these things, the Crusades, they did early on, but they were still holding. They still acquired the Ionian Islands, which I believe, since it was until 1797. Well, that was the Greeks in Byzantium were still, and Constantinople were still under the Ottomans at that time, if I'm getting this correct. So the Venetians captured Corfu in 1207 and maintained control over it, although it was briefly taken by other powers such as the Swabians and the Angioni of Naples before being sold back to Venice in 1402. Crete, the Venetians seized Crete from Boniface of Montferrat in 1204 and held it for over 4 centuries, establishing the kingdom of Candia. And then Naxos, Marco Sanindo, a Venetian noble, captured Naxos in 1207 and established the Duchy of the Aegean Sea, which included Naxos at its capital. The Ionian Islands, the Venetians gradually acquired the Ionian Islands, starting with Cythera and Anticythera in the 14th century, and maintained control over them until the end of the Republic. Okay, so this is what was happening then during the fall of the Byzantine Empire, which had lasted for 1,000 years before then, which I think is one of the longest lasting, if not the longest lasting, empire in human history. So, let's go on from here. I'm going to go to we're going to go to, so the Ottoman Empire did conquer several Greek islands during their expansion. As we go from the Venetian ones, we're going to talk about the Ottoman ones. The Ottoman conquering and owning, taking over the Greek islands during their expansion, many of which had been historically inhabited by Greeks for centuries. Before the Ottoman conquest, much of the Greek-speaking world, including the islands, was part of the Byzantine Empire. After the fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans in 1453, they systematically expanded their control, capturing mainland Greece, and most of the Aegean islands by the early 16th century. Islands like Cyprus and Crete, which were held by the Venetians, fell to the Ottomans in the 16th and 17th century, respectively. So see, those eventually fell even to the Ottomans as well. So Crete, so most of the Aegean islands, many of these islands were incorporated into the Ottoman Empire, though some, like the Cyclades, initially held a vassal status before being fully annexed. Crete fell in 1669, remaining under an Ottoman control until late 19th century, and then Cyprus conquered in 1571 and is still partially owned by Turkey, although it was originally Greek. Okay. So the Ionian Islands, these islands, including Corfu, were never ruled by the Ottomans, remaining under Venetian control until 1797. So, it's important to note that even during Ottoman rule, the majority population of many of these islands was Greek. The islands were eventually liberated during the Greek War of Independence and subsequent wars. Okay, so we're going to go into that next. As soon as I can find it. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit on here. So the Byzantine Empire fell on May 29, 1453, when the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople. This event marked the end of the Eastern Roman Empire, which had persisted for over 1,000 years, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So the Ottoman conquest led by Sultan Mehmed II saw the Ottoman army breach the city walls and ultimately capture Constantinople, effectively ending the Byzantine Empire, not helped by the western portion of the Western Roman Empire. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't do anything to help because they had that crusade. So let me get to this part. So what happened after all of this? So we have Greece's struggle for independence involved the liberation of various regions, including islands, from both the Venetians and the Ottoman Empire. Yes, the Venetians had controlled several Ionian islands, such as Corfu, Kefalonia, and Zakynthos, for a significant period, while the Ottomans ruled most of the Greek mainland and islands for nearly 4 centuries. The Greek War of Independence, which began on March 25, 1821, marked a turning point in this process. The revolution saw the liberation of the Peloponnese and other parts of the Greek mainland from Ottoman control, and by the end of the war, the Greek state was recognized as independent. The Ionian Islands, which had been under Venetian rule, were later ceded to the British in 1815 and remained a British protectorate until 1864, when they were finally annexed by Greece. While the Venetians had controlled some islands, the Ottomans had a more extensive and prolonged presence in Greece. The Greek revolutionaries managed to free many islands from both powers, although this process was complex and involved various historical phases. The final recognition of Greek independence came in 1830 following the intervention of the Greek powers and the Treaty of Constantinople. Okay, so we have this understanding. We understand now what happened with the schism, with the Fourth Crusade that sacked Constantinople, which was the East looked as a betrayal, and then we have the occupation and annexing and owning of the islands by both the Venetians and the Ottomans, and then almost 400 years, the Greeks in Constantinople area were under Ottoman rule, which was oppressive, and so then they got their independence in 1821, which began then, and it basically came to fruition and ended where they had their complete independence in 1830. Okay? So now we're going to go to Thrace. Thrace has been brought up in a newer video where St. Paisius had mentioned it in the longer portion of his prophecy that I shared with you the other day. But there's another one that's more concentrated on it, which I will show you shortly. So we're going to read up on Thrace because that's important. This is contentious apparently at this time as well. So it says Thrace history, Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. I'm going to show you a picture really quickly. It shows the where Thrace is. It's in 3 parts. So in North Thrace is in Bulgaria, East Thrace is in Turkey, and then West Thrace is still in Greece. Okay, so Thrace is a historical and geographical region in southeast Europe, encompassing parts of modern-day Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. Its history is marked by various periods of control and territorial changes. Thrace was originally inhabited by the Thracians, an Indo-European people who settled in the region in the 2nd millennium BC. The area was later colonized by the Greeks in the 7th century BC and became subject to Persia in the 6th century BC and to Macedon in the 4th century BC. It was reduced to a Roman province in the 1st century AD and later became part of the Byzantine Empire. In the 14th century, Thrace fell to the Ottoman Turks, who ruled it for 4 centuries. So here we go. The Byzantine Empire did own Thrace, okay? And then it was another one that was taken over that fell to the Ottomans when the Byzantine Empire fell. So Thrace was part of the Byzantine Empire before that, and the Ottoman Turks, of course, came in, occupied, and took over and ruled for 4 centuries. In the 19th century, the northern part of Thrace was annexed by Bulgaria in 1885, while the eastern part passed to Turkey in 1923. That was a difficult time, but I don't know if you know of the history of the Pontus Greeks and the Assyrians and I forget the other group that's over there, Armenians. Yeah. 1922 up to 1922 in the 1910s. That's when if I remember correctly, the Armenian genocide happened, and hundreds of thousands of Assyrians and Pontic Greeks were killed by the Turks. And so I see why this happened in 1923. The region's current boundaries were established after World War I through the Treaty of Lausanne, which gave Eastern Thrace to Turkey and Western Thrace to Greece. And it goes on. Let's see, finish up here. During the Balkan Wars, Thrace suffered greatly. After World War I, the boundaries of Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey and Thrace were established by the treaties of Neuilly, Sèvres, and Lausanne, and after World War II, they remained unchanged. In the 20th century, during World War II, Bulgaria sided with Germany and invaded Greece, leading to the Nazis giving Western Thrace to Bulgaria, which occupied this territory for 3 years until Greece's liberation. So Greece went through a lot of being occupied and all that. It's kind of interesting because you had that huge Alexander the Great's time and how he had conquered places and they were doing really great, and then eventually Greece is occupied. Okay. After the war, Greece retained Western Thrace, and this remains the current situation. So, we got all that now. And now I'm going to get into a few reports that are important that are happening now. And if you remember the Ex Amelia, the 6 miles in the water, the zone there that is the buffer zone that you're not supposed to cross over into Greece's territories, and in the Aegean, or I think that's supposed to be Aegean, but the Ionian I think as well, seas. So I'm gonna go through these reports really quickly. So let's see, we have this one. This one came out July 22nd this year. 2025, Turkey-Greece trade barbs over new Greek marine parks in Ionian and Aegean seas. So Greece and Turkey have exchanged sharp words over Athens' decision to create 2 major marine protected areas in the Ionian Sea and southern Aegean, with Ankara accusing Greece of unilateralism and warning that the move could affect disputed maritime zones. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis announced the new reserves on Monday, calling them part of his country's commitment to marine conservation. One of the new parks will be located in the Ionian Sea, the other in the southern Cyclades, a part of the Aegean Sea close to Turkey's coastline. These will be among the largest marine protected areas in the entire Mediterranean, Mitsotakis said. He added that Greece would ban bottom trawling, a controversial fishing method that damages the seabed, in all its marine reserves by 2030, becoming the first European country to do so. The move was described by Athens as an environmental milestone and a fulfillment of a pledge made at the UN Oceans Conference in France in June. When we protect our ocean, we protect our own future. Now, Ankara denounces unilateral action. And reminds you that these islands were Greek, and Turkey continues to argue over these islands, even though they had belonged to the Greeks initially, in the beginning, originally, and then the Ottomans took it over, and then the Greeks got them back. So as you can see, they continually bring up this kind of thing. Oh, it's unilateral. Well, not if you're a Greek. It's not unilateral. It's their islands. Okay. So Turkey's foreign ministry responded with strong criticism, saying the decision could impact areas whose sovereignty is disputed in the Aegean, and warning against unilateral measures in semi-enclosed seas such as the Aegean and the Mediterranean. So he says Greece declared 2 marine parks on July 21st, one in the Aegean and the other in the Ionian Sea, despite our prior objections, the Turkish foreign minister said. Our position, as stated in our April 2024 note, remains valid, such as the nations have no legal bearing on geographical formations whose sovereignty has not been transferred to Greece by international treaties. So Turkey accused Greece of using environmental concerns to bolster claims over contested islands, islets, and maritime features in the Aegean. And of course, Athens, and of course, and they're saying that, this is just being exploited as a global, as a environmental issue. And, of course, Greece is disagreeing. And a Greek government spokesperson, Pavlos Marinakis, however, rejected Turkey's objections, calling them baseless and reiterating that the parks were created solely for ecological purposes. This is a decision rooted entirely in environmental considerations. Turkey is free to believe whatever it wants about gray zones in the Aegean. Why we do not acknowledge their existence, and this will not alter our policy. Greece and Turkey are both NATO members, have a long history of disputes over maritime boundaries, airspace, and territorial sovereignty in the Aegean. Yes, it does. I'm going to go to this other one. Mitsotakis said Greece does not discuss sovereignty issues with Turkey. So, in relation to the gray areas claim in the Aegean, Mitsotakis stressed that point, among many others, in an interview. Okay, so during that interview, he noted that Greece will never accept any gray zone theory and will never accept Turkey telling it what to do or what not to do within areas of Greek sovereignty. Now, he stated about the marine parks in the Ionian and southern Aegean seas are purely an environmental initiative and should be embraced by all countries. The marine parks extend across the breadth of all territorial waters. Our territorial waters are defined by the islands that belong to Greece, and there is no question of Turkey disputing Greek islands, he emphasized. And noted that contrary to the policy of other governments, the government has chosen a different path. And so he goes on and he's says, in chess, I prefer to play with white. I want to have the initiative on the moves. Many of the reactions are the result of initiatives by the Greek government. I counter the theory of immobility and acceptance of fates accompli with an active foreign policy, which obviously also provokes reactions. So, responding to ruling party officials who had questioned this, he noted, I don't remember any significant initiative between 2004 and 2009 in Greek-Turkish relations. The government at the time tried to delimit maritime zones with Libya, but they didn't succeed. Twitter diplomacy is easy, but I would recommend that they be a little more careful. He always looks forward to calm waters with the neighboring country, and added that to a certain extent we have at least succeeded in avoiding extreme tensions and better management of immigration, which is another issue. Constantly, people immigrants coming in on boats, and Greece has had to push them back. And so we're going to go on, and so this is what they're arguing over, and Libya has been kind of part of this all of a sudden, and it's been basically he says he reiterated that the only difference between Athens and Ankara is the delimitation of maritime zones and continental shelf, while saying that the next high-level cooperation council between the two sides will be held in due course. So he's meeting Erdogan during the UN General Assembly in New York in September. Referring to relations with Libya, he noted that there is a distance between going for ratification of the Turco-Libyan memorandum and ratification. The Greek PM said Libya is practically a broken country, divided in half and in civil war. Any understanding is not always an easy task. The government has sought to have relations with both sides. At the moment, the official government on the ground respects the middle line, hence the boundaries of Greece. So We invite the Tripoli government to discuss with Greece the delimitation of the continental shelf and the exclusive economic zone. I believe that we will soon see technical committees discussing this perspective. The Turco-Libyan memorandum is not only legal but also absurd. And so, regarding immigration, Mr. Mitsotakis recalled that Greece protected its borders in March 2020 and that protecting maritime borders is a more complex matter. So we made a difficult decision. We want to send a message to smugglers and their clients that arriving in Greece will not amount to an easy entry. The country cannot tolerate a mass influx of illegal immigrants, and we will do everything in our power within the framework of international law to prevent it. So, regarding the Great Sea Interconnector between Cyprus and Greece, the Prime Minister stated that it will proceed and be completed at the appropriate time and when we close outstanding issues with Cyprus regarding the sharing of the cost of the project. So, this is the issue with the Thrace thing that I'm going to bring up here in a minute. Greece condemns OIC references to Turkish minority in Thrace during UN session. Greece's deputy permanent representative to the United Nations on Thursday underlined what he called the country's serious concerns and objections to the content of certain resolutions passed by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, saying the latter and elements of other such proclamations directly violate international law. The Greek diplomat Ambassador Ioannis Stamatakis spoke during the UN Security Council, focusing on the international body's cooperation with the OIC. He directly referred to a recent joint resolution by the latter organization entitled On the Situation of the Turkish Muslim Minority of Western Thrace, Greece, as well as quip about a Turkish Muslim community on the Dodecanese. Stamatakos said Athens considers such references as mistaken, given that the internationally recognized Lausanne Treaty of 1923 defines the status of the Muslim minority in Thrace as based on religion. He also emphasized that the small number of Greek citizens of the Muslim faith on Rhodes and Kos enjoy the same rights as every other Greek citizen, with their religious rights and freedoms fully protected. Turning to Cyprus, he pointed to UNSC resolutions 541 and 550, which require full compliance. Instead, the Greek diplomat said the OIC, since 2004, has bestowed an observer status to the Turkish Cypriot pseudo-state, contravening the UNSC resolutions. The latter, he added, call on all countries to respect the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of the Republic of Cyprus and to not recognize the illegal entity or support it in any manner. Okay, so he said Athens' efforts to broach these issues with the OIC Secretariat have had no result. Moreover, he said the adoption of positions that violate international law in no way further cooperation between the UN and the OIC or the Security Council's work. Finally, he said Greece, as an elected rotating member of the UNSC for the current 2-year period, will not back away from tabling these issues with the OIC and its member states, as it believes in the importance of a sincere and honest cooperation. Okay, so we're all up to date on what's going on here with Greece and Turkey and the history of all this, so that you get an idea what's going on. Now, I'm going to take you to the newer, concentrated, short prophecy of St. Paisios on the Thrace issue. Let's see. Okay. St. Paisios, a beloved Orthodox elder. I'm going to let the thing go here.
Shared many prophecies that many believe are slowly unfolding. He spoke of an initial spark for the Greek-Turkish, an incident that would set everything in motion. Regarding the initial spark, he foretold, "The problem will start from Thrace. It will be a diplomatic episode that cannot be resolved."
Okay, so again, as you see what's going on right now with the whole issue, there's the immigrant issue, there's the tensions between them on the Thrace issue that I just brought up, and then we'll go from there.
This prophecy suggests a tension in Thrace, not just military, but deeply diplomatic, impossible to untangle through negotiation. Alongside this, another striking warning was given. When you hear on television being referenced the issue of miles, of expanding the miles of the territorial sea from 6 to 12 miles, then war comes from behind, then it follows.
Okay, and so then, of course, he's talking about the nautical miles, 12 nautical miles, that Greece wants, Crete, that's Crete there, wants to be protected, I assume, from invasion of the Turks.
In 2014, a testimony surfaced, offering further insight into the elders' foresight, connecting Thrace, diplomacy, and the 12 miles. Before or during the discussion about the miles, Elder Paisios had told an acquaintance of mine that the Muslims of Western Thrace would declare independence. In response, we would say, "We have been right all along, and we won't expand to 12 miles just yet, and you within our territory are making a declaration. That's when we will proceed to expand to 12 miles." These revelations have sparked reflection and debate, but the elders' words continue to resonate, offering both caution and clarity.
Okay, so he says it's going to spark from Thrace. And, we've heard different things. We've heard about all the different signs. The closing, or the closing, I wouldn't call it, of the Euphrates by Turkey, which they've done with the dams. We've already seen that. That happened years ago. And he just talks about he's now saying the trigger here of the Thrace issue and the 12 miles. So to go from there, I'm going to bring back Elder Paniotes' prophecy about I'm not sure if he brought up Thrace, but the point is there's an important portion in there with Elder Paniotes of Afgara, the Ignatian Road, and NATO, and all that immigrants. I want to play that again so we can be back on track of what's going on here, trying to line all these things up. So I'm going to read these. The insightful Blessed Father Paniotes Siolis of Agrapha, who fell asleep in the Lord on 12 November 2021. And I'm playing this again, sorry if you've seen it. Had spoken accurately about the outbreak of the war with Turkey and the famine that will come, the result of which will be the new Third World War and the performance of the Constantinople strategy in Greece. This period is divided into several stages, as we said. It's interesting he says that because Elder Joseph of Vadapadi had brought up phases. Well, I don't know if he brought up phases, but somebody put it into phases of all the different ones all the different prophecies of the elements of the World War. And so it's interesting. He says that some of which we are already living, says Father Paniotis. However, concerns Turkey's invasion of Greek islands, which God will allow just enough to give Russia the right to attack Turkey, which will then have closed the sea straits. Yes. That is, Russia will work for us, thinking that it is working for itself, paying back thus, in a way, its guilty silence in the Greek Revolution of 1821 and the genocide of 1913 and 1922. The publisher of the Stilos Orthodoxo Dionysius Makris confirmed that he had written in October 2023 in his newspaper regarding an amazing and unexpected prophecy of the Blessed Father Paniotes, the so-called elder of Agrapha. Specifically, Father Paniotes was traveling to 2000 11 with one of his godchildren named George Bezikas on the road from Lamia to Domaku, one of the most dangerous roads in all of Greece, with numerous and continuous traffic accidents. Then suddenly the elder asked George, if there is a war, where do you have to show up? The army paper mentions Evros. You're not going to show up at Evros. You're going to Rio. You're going to Rare Cross, and there you're going to be tasked with telling the residents to go up to the mountains to the right of Napkios. This is an important portion here I'm going to bring up in another prophecy, okay? So try to remember that. Because NATO troops are going to come through and ravage everything what they can find on their way. And this, again, is another tie-in to another prophecy, which I will bring up after this. Then George asked the elder when the war would take place. George, the war will break out when the new road connecting Domaku to Lamia is completed. That then there will be a great famine in Greece. It won't last long, and then we will go to the city Vusas, also known as Iasavia. The terrible thing is that after 10 days from that conversation, a new army paper came to George from the army, which said in event of conscription, he will be present, no longer in Evros, but in Rio. Just as the elder of Agrippa had foretold him. And the most terrible thing is, now, after 13 years since then, the new road Lamia-Domaku is in full development. As a part of the big central road, E65, which will connect Lamia with Ignatia Otis. The entire Lamia-Domaku section, which is in the southern section of the central road, has been completed in the beginning of 2024. On Tuesday, April 23rd, the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis will hand over the southern section of the road to the public, facilitating travel from Lamia to Kalambaka. The entire central road of Lamia to Ignatia E65, together with the northern section, is expected to be completed in 2025. This year, folks. That's what he's saying. Therefore, either in 2024 or 2025, a war and famine will break out. Yeah. So, we shall see when this happens, when this road is totally completed, and this particular war and famine will break out. And this section of the prophecy, of the World War III prophecy. Of course, we're already living in the prelude in Ukraine and Palestine, which you remember, he died in 2021, so he is speaking on this before that time period. But the main phase will begin when Turkey attacks the Greek islands, as we know, and thus finding a reason, Russia will then attack the current friend Turkey, as we know, and will continue its way down to Israel. As we know, yeah, we've heard that. Then all of NATO will be forced to declare general war on Russia and its Islamic allies. And mainly to Constantinople and the Sea Straits. The troops will pass unbelievably like a roadster through Greece. From Initia and the connected new hubs, such as the Ionian Road A5, and perhaps the new Central Road A3 or E65, even reaching Nafpaktos, while at the same time, hundreds of NATO ships will be moving. As he warned 250 years ago, say Cosmas. Women and children should go out into the mountains. Yes, he said that. Because they will be in danger because of the NATO army. Yes. While we should wear a cross visibly on the forehead, on the front and back of clothes. Otherwise, NATO will kill us from afar, thinking we are Muslim allies of Russia. Because then the satellites, GPS, internet, cell phones will be cut off, which I mentioned before. The connections there. and they won't even know where they are heading and where they have to go, but we know. So he knows that they need to go to the mountains, the mountain villages, and the mountain monasteries to stay safe. Okay, so we have all that down. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going back to the phases of Elder Joseph. He's always come back because his information is so amazing. Okay, so let's go with what we said here. We're going to start with 5, because everything I'm going to read on here is going to pretty much, I think, pertain to what Elder Panagiotis had been saying. Okay, so the Russians will deploy forces to eastern Thrace and the opposite territories of Asia Minor. Eastern Thrace, which, of course, that's part of the Turkey portion of Thrace. The Westerners will land in Albania, 3 million troops, and through the Paragnatia Road, they will move east. The Paragnatia Road. I wonder if that's the same thing as the Ignatia Road. It sounds like it. See what I'm saying? So we're going to go to the next portion. However, due to extensive damage to the road network, they will divert the most of the NATO forces to Greece through the Ignatian Road. There you go. Because that's interesting. That was the one that I think he said is going to be done. So they will do this on the one hand because the Greek road network will have suffered more minor damages, as until then Greece will have remained neutral, and on the other hand because the Russians will choose not to strike an Orthodox and friendly neighboring country. However, the Westerners will hate the Greeks terribly because they did not fight against the Russians and because they will not have suffered such great destruction and losses. The Virgin Mary will show the protection of Greece, and Christ will subsequent her later great role in the global dominion of Orthodoxy. At this moment, the Greeks are conserving their strength and strengthening the legacies of their faith. Now, blessed be the Greeks who will fall into the hands of NATO. Every farmer and shepherd will be asked with ridiculous excuses to answer and questions about whether the city, Constantinople, is far or near, and they will be tortured until death. They will ask you if the city is far. Don't tell the truth because they will abuse you. That's St. Cosmas Anatolian, his warning from, over 200 years ago. The army will deviate from their course and attack small and large towns, which Elder Panagiotis brought up. Father Panagiotis brought this up. Now get this. The shame of the papal crusades will be repeated. Here we go. The same thing again. Houses will be looted. Women of any age will be raped. Innocent citizens will be murdered. Churches will be set on fire, and the evil will continue because the military units will succeed one another. The only salvation will be to flee to the forests and mountains. A part of the NATO soldiers will be channeled through Thessaly. A terrible disaster will await the inhabitants of the surrounding areas. The villages of the Campos will be destroyed because they do not have a natural cover. Only the villages that are at the foot of Mount Olympus and Mount Kisavos will be spared. And then, of course, these parentheses are what St. Cosmas had originally said 250 years ago. Those villages that are close to a road will suffer a lot. The villages of Campos will suffer a lot, while at the foot of the Kisavos, they will sleep as slaves and wake up free. Okay. Don't build big houses, burn the sunflowers so they don't come in. The rocks and pits will be full of people. That's his, he has a way of using metaphors and things when he speaks. The military forces from Thessaly and Ignatia will unite outside the city, but the wage of the new crusaders will be heavy and devastating in front of the walls of Constantinople. The Russians will prevail, and later they will hand over the city to the Greeks, where the few remaining inhabitants will suffer little injustice. And he explains all that. St. Cosmas says, through 3 narrow passages, namely Crapsi and Mosina, many armies will advance on their way to Constantinople. They will seek to take you as soldiers, but they will not do so in time. The Greek army will not reach the city in the middle of the road. They will learn that the war is over. In Constantinople, so much blood will flow that a 3-year-old calf could swim in it. Says St. Cosmas, Lord have mercy. Now, I assume whoever is translating this or explaining about this says, the elder did not reveal to us any, the elder did not reveal to us any further. Perhaps the nuclear war of the 3 days. Now, they're saying there is a nuclear war in this. That the nuclear weapons will be used, and nuclear bombs, and whatever weapons of some sort, and that's what Metropolitan Theophilus had said. And somebody had asked me that in one of the comments under one of my videos, and I told them I heard one that said that there would be using nuclear weapons, and then one that's elder that said that they wouldn't because it would cause too much devastation. But in any case, it seems to me that they're really expecting nuclear weapons to be used in those 3 horrible days, which is the big slaughter that will follow the above events, as well as the flash of orthodoxy. St. Harlambus had prophesied that Russia would become a world superpower for 5.5 months, but in the end it would be defeated by the Americans, who, however, will not find hands to applaud. In fact, there will be no winner, as the earth will turn into a vast cemetery. Lord have mercy. As the elder Joseph said, America will be completely destroyed and 90% of its citizens will be killed. I sure hope that's not true. Lord have mercy. We need to pray for God's mercy and for us to repent and ask for him to lessen what's to come. Now, regarding Turkey's attack, the elder of Vatapudi, that's Joseph, clarified the Turks have planned to occupy some large Greek islands, possibly to exchange them later with eastern Thrace. So they're thinking possibly to say, hey, Greece, you can have eastern Thrace, our portion, if you give us those islands. Interesting. I don't think Greece is actually going to go for that, but interesting info there. At the same time, they will rise up Muslim economic immigrants in our country, whom they will have supplied the military equipment and will follow with acts of sabotage, such as blowing up bridges, roads, arson, destruction of aqueducts, and possibly even contamination of drinking water. And so they've already found Yafs with thousands of weapons, and we know from some who provoke by staying in 5-star hotels that we will suffer a violent disruption and overthrow of the legal order. The Turks will attempt the absolute surprise. They will embark their troops in ships, and they will head to land from Kavala in Athens, while as a distraction they will also attack Cyprus, where fierce battles will be fought and there will be great losses to the army and the civilian population. They will reach a breath from their target only 6 nautical miles from the shores, the 6 miles prophesied by St. Cosmas the Anatolian. But due to the rapid descent of the Russians, they will be forced to withdraw their forces in order to defend their homeland. Then the Greek Cypriot forces will retake the occupied territories, where unfortunately incidents of ethnic cleansing will occur. So it seems to me that somewhere in between all of this, where Russia comes down, and then then you have all this stuff going on with Turkey and Greece. There's so many things at once seeming to be happening. But I wanted to make sure you all got something out of that with the history I shared with you. I hope that helped you to understand what the history has been with the Eastern Church and the Western Church, the schism, the Ottoman occupation for 400 years over Constantinople, the Greeks there, the Venetians that took some of the islands, and Greece's independence in 1830 got all those back. And so the tensions that are still going on with Greece and Turkey, and then the prophecies adding to this, coming along hand in hand with what's going on with the news reports, as one of the elders had said, the holy elders had said, including St. Paisius, that all of these World War III prophecies would be news headlines. So I hope you got a lot out of this, and I hope it was very informative. It really was for me, because I certainly didn't know all that. Very informative, and also that you understand, hopefully it made some sense of what I try to put out there on what's going on with the prophecies regarding the Greece and Turkey issue through what I shared here. Thanks so much for watching. Please, if you would like to subscribe to my channel, my YouTube channel, I'd appreciate it. Like my videos if you like them. Share them if you think they're worth sharing. I appreciate all of your time in taking the time to watch my videos, to hopefully get something out of it, and I really just appreciate all your support, and hope you have a wonderful Saturday afternoon.